ammunition fanatic.
Hello, monsters abound here. Now, last weekend, I partook in the closed beta for Warhammer 40,000 Darktide, which, if you don't know what it is, it's basically like Warhammer 40,000 Vermintide. And if you don't know what Vermintide is, then it's Warhammer Left 4 Dead. And if you don't know what Left 4 Dead is, then it's a game in first person where you and 3 other people have to complete an objective by fighting your way through hordes of enemies as one of 4 characters. So, Darktide is the newest iteration of this. This is done by Fat Shark, which their last game was Vermintide, which you can play right now if you like Warhammer and killing Skaven. It's not bad. And I will say that I didn't really get on with Vermintide or Vermintide 2. I really wanted to. I tried multiple times, but I never... I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was, but I just bounced off it. I will say, I think that Darktide, from what we played in the closed beta, seemed a little bit easier than Vermintide. Because I remember going into Vermintide and just getting wrecked again and again and again. Because obviously, you know, unless you're playing with friends, you're playing with just a pickup group. So you get randomly assigned people. Inevitably, when things go wrong, at least one of these 3 people is going to start blaming everyone else. Because they, of course, are perfect. And they could do no wrong. Now, I'm not going to say I was very good. I just started playing, to be honest. But I just felt like I was getting curb stomped every single time I played. I got wrecked. And I felt like, there's people saying, well, yeah, no, it has to be a hard game, otherwise what's the point? I'm like, well, okay, I get that. But also, I'm not enjoying myself. Like, basically, I jump into a game, I get swarmed by rats, I get half killed, and then other people die, and then everyone starts hurling abuse. And I'm just like, that's not really a fun game experience for me. However, I'm glad to say that Darktide, at least what I played of it, was much chiller. It was fun. Now, I was playing on the lowest difficulty missions most of the time, but you know what? That's fine. That's what low difficulty is supposed to be for. And I won most of the games, and by winning them, I got better, and I got, confidence got better, and then I started taking on harder missions. I was like, okay, I can... And that kind of felt better, right? I was being introduced to stronger enemies, because although you're fighting these hordes of enemies most of the time, occasionally stronger enemies will show their face, and obviously you then have to deal with them. Things like Chaos Spawn, or Plague Ogrins, mutants, that kind of thing. And as you do different harder missions, you'll face a different variety of stronger enemies. Things like Ogrins with heavy stubbers, that kind of thing. But because you've then kind of like, you're being introduced to these after you've kind of got the general game down, they can be a problem, but it feels like a problem that, you can kind of deal with. It's not to say that I won every single one of my games. I say I won most of them, but certainly there were points where we just got our ass kicked. Fair enough. Even if you lose a mission, you still get some rewards for doing it. Obviously, you get more rewards for completing it fully. But you do get rewards that includes like income, so some money, some extra resources, which I think can be spent on cosmetics after a while. Because you start off as sort of like this renegade, this prisoner. Basically, you're like a penal legion. And you've been tasked with dealing with a chaos rebellion on a planet below the ship that you're currently stationed on. So you're sent down to complete various objectives. You can either just like say, I'll take anything, or you can select a specific mission with a specific objective. So there seemed to be 3 that were available in the... Was it 3? Maybe 4. That were available in the beta. There certainly was an objective that was harder than the rest. So there was one where you had like an assassination mission. That wasn't too bad. As long as you could deal with the final boss, you were generally fine. There was one where you had to like restart a smelter. That again wasn't too bad. That was generally fine. There was one where you had to steal ammunition, and that again generally fine. But there was one where you had to like restart the coolant or something, and that particular objective was an absolute bastard to do. Mostly because it required you splitting up quite a lot. Or rather, the pickup groups that I had tended to split up. I think there's also a little bit of luck there in that if you get hit by like multiple particular types of enemies at the same time, that can really increase the difficulty. And that's purely down to luck. There's these guys that do nets, hounds that can jump on one of your guys and basically like lock them down. The nets will lock you down. I think in one particular instance we had 2 hounds and a netter. Someone got netted, and then 2 people got jumped by hounds, and then the 3rd person just got mobbed. The 4th person just got mobbed. And at that point it's like, well, I don't know, what do you do? What do you do? So I think sometimes it was down to pure luck, but I do think that particular mission type just seemed to be harder than the rest. But overall, I think the missions were pretty good, although it did become quite samey throughout the weekend. I was playing with a few other content creators, including Great Book of Grudges, and Great Book of Grudges played like 26 hours in 2 days, and then, for some reason, I'm not entirely sure, burned out. Bless him. But, so, you can play as one of 4 different characters. Now, I gravitated to the Oghren, because he's a big lad, and I can get down with that. So it's interesting in the fact I kind of wanted to try this game because I felt like it might be a shootier version of Vermintide, and there does seem to be more shooting in it. But the Oghren isn't really a shooty character. His starting gun is a one-shot blunderbuss that requires reloading after you've shot it. So obviously that's not really great shooting. You eventually do get a ripper gun, which is like a sort of like think of like a heavy bolter type thing, and that is a little bit more shooty. But even then, your strength really does lie in just pummeling people with your melee weapon. In spite of that, I still found this a lot more fun than Vermintide. I genuinely don't know why. But I really did enjoy this. I enjoyed it, and I'm excited for the full release now. I was kind of like, oh, it might be good. Let's give it a shot. I'm open-minded, right? I don't judge. But I was somewhat cautious about just, you know, how I would find it. Would I bounce off this like I did Vermintide 2? And I'm going to say that I didn't. I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed the... even the times I was playing with just, like, pickup people. And you know what? There were times where we wiped out and that particular person, who's obviously perfect, started swearing at everyone else. And you know what? I just went, that's fine. I don't get too salty about that kind of thing. But because I felt like I knew what I was doing, it didn't feel like, you know, a massive issue. So you can play as the Oghren. There's also and I didn't actually play any of the other characters because I like my Oghren too much. So I just kind of went with him. But there is like a Psyker. There's also like a priesty lady. And there's also a sharpshooter. Obviously, the sharpshooter is sort of like, you know, a shooty boy. They all have different weapons. So the Oghren obviously gets the blunderbuss and the ripper gun. But the sharpshooter starts with a las gun. I'm hoping there's different types of weapons because obviously because the blunderbuss was like a really good like stopping weapon. Like if you were being charged by a mutant or something, you shot it in the face with a shotgun, it was going to fall over and have to get back up, which was actually really useful. But obviously, if you missed, well, that was slightly more of a trouble. That was slightly more problem. I know this like had some like stun thing that he could do, so he could like, you know, stun enemies, which was obviously quite useful. The priest I think had like some sort of buff. I think we all had some sort of aura that we did. Like I think the Oghren increases heavy attack strength, something like that, and I think they do stack. So if you had 4 Oghrens in your army or your squad, they'd obviously be a little bit more you know, punching people to death quite hard. You do have grenades and stuff. That they all work slightly differently. Like, I think the priest lady has like a stun grenade. The Ogryn just throws the box of grenades at people. I guess because pulling pins out of grenades is too much for him, so he just throws the box, which apparently does a lot of single target damage, but no explosions. So bit of a letdown there. I'm hoping there's some kind of flamer in the game, because that'd be my bag. Setting people on fire would be just fucking great. I would be down for that shit. But I'd guess that'd be a priesty lady type thing. The sharpshooter seemed pretty good. From what I could tell, people were enjoying the sharpshooter, but I particularly just went for the Ogryn. He's just a bit of a tank, is the Ogryn. He's a bit of a melee tank boy, but I just liked the big heavy weapon and being able to like bludgeon people to death with either a mace or basically a sword, which was quite fun. There were different types of weapons and stuff. One of the things I would say is that it was very difficult to work out what weapons were better. They had these bars and stuff, which were like, oh, this one does slightly more damage and this one does more stagger, but you couldn't compare them against each other. So you couldn't take two weapons and go, well, what's the difference between these two? You just had to remember where the bar was and hope for the best. And this was particularly egregious in the shop. So in between each mission, you kind of go to the ship, and that's where you can buy new items, sign up for new missions and stuff. So currently, there's not really much there that you can really do. It's basically just those two things, really. Just buy stuff and start a new mission. But if you went to the shop to buy a new item, you could only see the item that you had selected. So if you were going to buy like a new gun or something, you could see the stats for that gun. Could you compare it with any of the ones you actually had in your inventory? Nope. Nope, you just had to guess. You just had to base it on like the item number and trying to work out where the bars were. So, you know, it's a beta, to be fair. So there's obviously things to be worked on, but the UI definitely I think needs to be one of them. I didn't quite understand sort of like, so items have like rankings of numbers, and I wasn't sure like if, say, a level 100 item did less damage than a level 120 item. Because in theory, the bar might be less, but I don't know like the overall stats would be higher because there weren't any numbers apart from the overall item number. That was it. Or then you just had bars. So I was genuinely not entirely sure what was going on there. Overall, it was serviceable, but there's definitely improvements to be made in certain areas of the UI. But overall, genuinely pretty great. Really did just gel with this, and now very excited to play some more of it. I don't think there is a release date for it yet, so I'm hoping there's going to be some more closed betas or maybe open betas. We did have a bit of trouble logging in to start off with, so it sort of like kicked off at midday UK time, and I don't think anyone managed to log in until about 2. So it's like an hour where we were all sitting in a queue and nothing was happening. But it's one of those things. It was a beta. It was the first time they kind of opened it up for people, I think. And so that you know, issues were to be expected. It wasn't a massive issue, to be honest. Once the servers had actually opened, that was the only time I saw a queue. Was that first time. Every other time, logged straight in, and it was fine. So, if you'd like Vermintide, I think you'll probably really enjoy this as well. If you've never tried Vermintide, but this looks interesting, then I would definitely keep a lookout for it, because it genuinely had a lot of fun. I'm not normally someone who goes online to play games, mostly because of other people, right? I don't mind being online. It's the other people that are the problem, really. So I you know, I prefer playing with people I know. However, my schedule is not great. So obviously, lots of things for me to do. So I don't generally have time to sit down and play at specific points of the day. I usually have to grab time where I can, which obviously makes playing with other people, unless they happen to be online and happen to have space, a little bit difficult. But even playing with the pickup groups was genuinely quite enjoyable, and I felt like I got a handle on what I was doing very, very quickly. So really enjoyed this. Looking forward to the full release or more closed betas where there's more kind of stuff. Maybe more guns. Give the Ogryn a flamer. That's all I'm asking for. Just a big, heavy flamer. It's just I don't. It's fine. Just get a flame. That's all I want really. If I had one thing to say to devs, it would be heavy flamer. When? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Acceptable performance registered and recorded. Extract.
Thoughts now. Time to go.